Accepted.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for interrupting your lunch, but I'm going to say a few cool things about inject function in Angular, especially 5 cool usages that you can use in your app. And if you don't know what inject function is in Angular, it was introduced in Angular 14, and you can use it to inject something from dependency injection, not using a constructor, but a function. Sounds stupid, right? But it is cool. And it is limited, so you can use it only during component creation stage. It's a huge limitation, but despite that, it's still pretty useful, and I'm going to prove it. And I will jump straight to the code. Boy, it's going to be a fun. So I will start with something pretty obvious. So in Angular, we use a lot of observables. And every time when we have a subscription, there is a possibility of a memory leak, and we have to deal with that. And there's like dozens of methods how to do this. So you can store subscription object and then unsubscribe in ng on destroy lifecycle hook. You can use take until operator from Angular, RxJS. You can use additional npm package and use decorator for that, and so on and so on. The way I like to do this is to create a function. I'm calling it use on destroy. I'm injecting one thing, destroy ref. It was recently introduced in Angular 16, but if you don't have the latest, the best Angular, you can inject chain detector ref, cast it as a vref. It's not pretty. It's not a very safe way, but it works. And once you upgrade to Angular 16, just change it to destroy ref. You don't have to change anything else. Okay? So I have a subject here. There is onDestroy function that gets a callback, and this callback will be executed during component destroy. And I'm going to send a value on my stream and complete it. And of course, I'm returning that stream. So usage is quite simple. If we go here, you can see that I have a field called onDestroy with $ at the end because it's a stream. And I'm using take until to solve my problem. It sounds cool, right? It works. It's only one line. You don't have to inherit anything. It works. Before you go to your code and you refactor every possible place where you have that, please consider moving your streams to the template and use async pipe, push pipe, whatever you want, because template is the best way of solving that problem. It has a really short time frame when component is during the destroy process, and that's the moment you want to unsubscribe, okay? And I know that this function is cool and really nice because not only they introduced destroy ref that I had here, right, in Angular 16, they introduced something called take until destroyed. It's a similar function. It's built in. So if you have Angular 16, you can just use it. So that's why I know it's good. It's a popular choice, right? So another one I'm calling use host binding. And we have host binding decorator in Angular, and I don't like it. So it is magic. You have a Boolean field, you only assign to that, so it looks like a little bit like a dead code, and there's that strange operator, that strange decorator above it, that does all the magic and toggles CSS class if you run a chain detection cycle and so on. I don't like it. It's not a very descriptive way of writing a code. So I'm creating use host binding instead. I'm injecting two things, render to, because I want to manipulate my CSS classes, and element ref to get native element of my host component. And then I'm returning a really simple object with two methods, set and get. And this solution is beautiful because you can do here whatever you want. You can have enable, disable, you can create use active class, and then have active, deactive methods. So it is way more descriptive than that Boolean field. And it's simple. Set sets a new value, toggles a CSS class, get gets the current state. Usage, again, is quite simple. So I have a background field. It's not a Boolean, it means something. I have some operations that I can execute. More descriptive way. And of course, I can use it. So I'm passing red class that is changing red background, and the default value of false, because why not? And in interval, in 1 second, I'm toggling it. And of course, I would like to add a toggle method to that because it sounds cool. So does it work? Yeah, it does. So here we have use host binding, and after 1 second, it will change color. And probably you noticed that I run this whole command outside of Angular zone, which means that no change detection cycle was executed here. So you don't have to run change detection just to add a CSS class on your component. So it is an optimized way of doing things. That's why I like it. And not only you can replace use host binding and remove all of these unused Boolean variables, you can as well create use host listen. And it's even simpler, 2 lines. I'm injecting again element ref to get HTML element of my host component, and I'm returning a stream. And usage, again, is really simple. So every time when I have a mouse enter on my component, I will do something with background, because why not, right? And of course, in a more realistic example, you probably would do something and then pass the whole stream to the template and use async pipe or something to display the data. Again, it works pretty well. So use host listen. Every time when I mouse enter, it works. But this one is using chain detection to work, because every mouse enter will trigger a chain detection cycle. So I decided to create use zoneless host listen. So I have inject element ref as previously. I have ng zone, and I'm running the whole from event outside of Angular zone, which means that no event will trigger a chain detection, and I'm just pushing a value on that stream. It works pretty the same as use host listen, but it is better for performance. And here you can notice that I used use on destroy because I want to handle that memory leak that might be in that subscription, right? You can compose those functions because you can use zoneless host listen can be used only during component creation stage. So every other function that you use inside has that guarantee that you can use it with inject. So you can compose that. You can create a really complex things with that and have more descriptive functions. So I have really generic use zoneless host listen. You can, for example, do something show tooltip on mouse enter. It does what it means. It sounds cool, right? And the last one is quite complicated, so please stay focused. I'm calling it use on changes. It's not using inject function, but it works pretty well with other functions that use it. So the main goal of this function is to transform changes of inputs in your component to a stream. So you will no longer need lifecycle hooks to manipulate your data. You can use operators from RxJS. You can use a lot of cool things, and I like streams, so it works. And code is a bit strange, so I'm wrapping the original ng on changes, and when one of the fields of inputs that I wanted changed, I push a value on a stream. Of course, I have take until use on destroy, because we want to manage that. And the most unrealistic, but the easiest example I can show you is this. So I have input called value. I'm calling use on changes on this component, this instance, with value. And I like my implementation because it will, oh, it's not, what the hell. It will suggest me all of the fields I can use automatically. And if I, misclick something, right, something like that, it will not compile. So I'm going to listen for changes on value. And every time when value is changing, I'm going to toggle background. And it's unrealistic example, I know. But please wait. I will change if it works. It works. So it's time for a more realistic example. Imagine that you have user details component. There's one input, user ID. Every time when user ID is changing, you want to fetch some additional data from HTTP. You want to map it, filter unnecessary data, and display on the component, right? Standard stuff. Without use on changes, you would implement ng on changes hook. You would probably introduce a field called user details to use it on a template. And you have to inject HTTP client, a lot of things, right? A lot of code. So with user changes, you can call user changes with user ID argument. Then you use pipe and switch map to get data from HTTP. Map filter operators from RxJS, and then you can pass the whole stream to the template, and it's lazy. If it's not visible, it won't do anything. So you don't have unnecessary fields, you don't have unnecessary injects. It works. You can even encapsulate the whole thing into a function and reuse it in different components if you want. That's why I think it's cool, and it works pretty well with other inject-based functions. And by the way, my name is Kamil Gałek. I'm a front-end developer at Big Picture. I forget to introduce myself, stress and stuff. I work with Big Picture, Angular product of Upfire, really cool, really big. We have, a huge field for learning. I'm the author of mythicalAngular.dev, and I have few articles on my blog, on Medium, and I have a GitHub repository for my recipes because I'm strange and I like to code. So you know what to do with pull requests, right? I really like, Asian food and so on. So if you have anything interesting, please. And I have a homework for you because I really believe that it's the best way of learning things to try it at home. So I want you to go to Medium or my blog on mythical-angular.dev. There is an article called "I'm preparing myself for the lightning talk," like today. So here we have 5 cool usages of inject function in Angular. You will find every possible detail about my talk today. So the code, the repositories, not so cool images, I'm sorry. But at the end, I have a homework for you. So I want you to try at home to write something called use HTTP resource. And you may assume what it does. It is so simple, just one line. You don't need anything else for simple apps. And as you may assume, you just want to inject HTTP client, have few arguments, and that's all. It's a really simple function. Then I want you to try to create use on init that is basically the same as use on changes, but works on init hook. And I want you to create more specific function, use catfags. So it will use HTTP resource to fetch catfags, map it to DTO or something. And of course, you have to handle errors. So I want you to create use message error handler in which you will dynamically create message error component. It is possible with an inject function. And look how descriptive it is. It's really nice. And you can, of course, encapsulate the whole stream into something else like use display catfags or catfags DTOs or something like that. And you have really nice code in your component. The last one is the easiest one, create use navigation. Of course, we want to encapsulate the whole router. Bonus points if you find a way how to use TypeScript to type routes to have full IntelliSense in your application. It is possible. It is. So that's all from me. If you want my article, Medium, or my blog, it's called, as I said, I'm preparing myself for the lightning talk. Thank you very much, and have a nice lunch.